Hello. So I've postponed shooting this film pretty much since the start of this channel because I've been waiting for the right conditions to include it in a video so that hopefully it looks at its best. And finally, that has actually happened in the last few weeks when I went to California and Arizona, where I got this kind of red, dusty kind of landscape, which I thought suited the color palette for this film. So I managed to shoot about 4 rolls through a Mamiya 6, and here I am to talk about it. So this is Kodak Ektar. So as you can tell by the name, it's a 100 speed film that is made in all varieties of film formats, all the way from 35mm to 8x10. And primarily, it's actually designed for landscape photography. As you'd expect for a 100 speed film, the grain is pretty much non-existent. And actually Kodak themselves call it the finest grain color film ever in the world. Who knows, could be true, could not be, it probably is. But to be honest, unless you're printing it super big, you're probably not going to notice too much difference. The images I have, they do look super clean, but I've never really looked at color film photos unless they're pushed that are noticeably grainy. It's also incredibly saturated. And this is because it's designed primarily to be used for landscape photography. So if you don't dig the kind of portrait look, the more pastel, less saturated tones, maybe this film is the right one for you. It's a great alternative to the other landscape films like Provia and Velvia, mainly because it's color negative instead of slide. This means that it's developed as a normal color film instead of through the E6 process like slide film. So if you don't live near a lab which offers E6 processing, it's a great alternative to Velvia and Provia, and actually it's a regular color negative film, unlike those two which are slide films, which means if your lab doesn't offer E6 processing, Ektar's got your back. This also means that it has more dynamic range than slide film. It's got a few more stops on them, which means if you've got a more dynamic scene where you actually want to retain the highlights and shadows, Ektar's actually probably a better option. However, even though it has more than slide film, it doesn't have as much as something like portrait. So you still do want to be a bit more careful with your exposures and be careful not to blow it out or underexpose it too much. And definitely be more careful about the underexposing because the shadows tend to drop off pretty quickly and give a strange cast. Usually when I shoot color negative film, I'm overexposing it by like 1 stop or 2 stops. But with Ektar, I think it's best if you stick to box speed. Lots of people out there do more experimenting and push it or do different things, but my recommendation, just keep it at 100. Since the film is more saturated, in my opinion, it's not very good for portraits. And I think it's been way more of a trend in the last few years to start using it for portraits, and people have been quite happy with the more bold colors. However, for me, I just think the skin tones look super weird. It's particularly with lighter skin. The red and pink tones, which really push through to make the landscapes look so good, make white skin red or pink. It just doesn't look very natural. And maybe this is right up your alley. Maybe you love it. It does occasionally work. And with darker skin, it makes much less of an impact and does tend to look good. But for me personally, I'd much rather shoot something like portrait and just have it look normal. The only time I've actually shot Ektar in the past was on 35mm, so I guess I'll show you some of those as well. I used the Contax T2, I believe, and they were all actually taken with flash. And I think this kind of aesthetic works really well. Like, for some reason, I think the kind of more bold colors with the flash just give a really good look. And unless I was taking landscapes, I'd probably be more likely to use Ektar with flash than without. I just think it had a really cool look. So I actually think the photos from this trip came out pretty good. At the time, I was a bit worried that I wasn't using a normal film that I'm used to. But I think it actually did really well. The only images which I don't really like are the portraits, which is kind of what I was expecting. So I guess the question is, will I use it again? To be honest, I probably won't. I just think that to me, it makes more sense to shoot on something like portrait and kind of get the best negative that you can. Try and retain the most detail so you can do whatever you want with it afterwards. If I want it to look more saturated and bold, I can just edit that in post. However, if you're all about trying to get the most authentic film experience and just have it exactly how it was, if you like spending less time editing, this is great as well. But for me, I don't mind putting in that little bit of extra work. So let me know what you think about Ektar. Leave me a comment. Tell me if you like it or not. Do you use it for portraits, or do you think it's a no-go? I will be reading them all and probably replying to some. Sorry there haven't been many videos recently. I've been away for quite a long time, so the wheels are turning again and there'll be more stuff soon. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you, I don't know when, but sometime soon.